if we could now, you got one in your back pocket?
Yes, sir, I got one.
Okay, and we can stand, we'll do the invocation and then pledge allegiance.
I'm talking about you, Lord, for this day, we thank you for all that has transpired during this day. We just want to say thank you for the city we live in, and we ask that you bless all, who live, and help us to be good stewards, of the city. We just want to say thank you, Lord, thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. We just raise the flag, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could do roll call?
District 1, Pat Creel.
Yes.
District 2, Phyllis Smith Campbell. Here. District 3, Billy Goodson.
Here.
District 4, Frank Fletcher.
Here.
Our new District 5, Itching Bow.
Correct. Yep.
District 6, I'm here. District 7, Wendy Meyer is absent. Chief of Police appointee Rajiv Sharma is also absent. And Mayor's appointee Mark Highsmith.
Present. Next, we need to accept the agenda for this evening.
Motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to accept the agenda for this evening. Is there any discussion? Any additions? Okay, we'll vote by roll call vote.
Pat Creel.
Yes.
Phyllis Smith Campbell.
Yes.
Billy Goodson.
Yes.
Frank Fletcher.
Yes.
Yetching Bow.
Yes.
I say yes.
Yes.
Mayor's appointee Mark Highsmith.
Yes. Okay. And then at next, we'd like to move to the approval of the minutes. I know that they were sent out as well. Were there any, and I have them here, are there any additions or, well, excuse me. Well, is there a motion on the floor to accept
Make a
those?
motion to accept the minutes as circulated among the.
If someone was unappointed or not member for the time, it may be best for them to abstain.
Got you. Okay. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Great call. So we move to properly second. Is there any discussion or additions? Okay. If not, we'll go ahead and vote on approval of the minutes by roll call vote.
Pat Creel.
Yes.
Phyllis Smith Campbell.
Yes.
Billy Goodson.
Yes.
Frank Fletcher.
Yes.
Yetching Bow.
His name.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. See, I would say yes, I voted in, and you're abstaining as well.
No. I'm yes. I just wasn't at the meeting, but I read the minutes.
Oh, okay,
And
all right.
I agree. I had no additional changes or comments.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, were there any public comments? Okay, we'll move into committee reports. We'll start with District 1.
Nothing.
Next we'll go, thanks Pat. Next we'll go to District 2. Anything?
Nothing.
Thank you, Phyllis. District 3.
Nothing to report.
We'll go to District 4. Right?
Nothing to report.
Let's get over to District 5. I know you're we'll go to District 6.
The only thing I need to bring up is about the parade and the street festival. So we are all signed up for both the parade and for a booth for the street festival. It's October 7th. And I'll be sending out the directions on as far as setting up our booth for the morning of, and for what time everybody's supposed to be showed up for the parade, and we'll also talk about how the float's going to be decorated.
So Frank, I think we're going to use his trailer. Did you say we needed a canopy?
No, we have one.
You have one, okay. I was going to say I have one.
Yep. we've got one, and we've got a table, and we've got the banners. So Frank is providing his trailer, and I believe he'll also be pulling the trailer.
Yeah, we'll have truck and drive.
Alright, so we'll just need to decide on who's going to ride the parade and, how the trailer needs to be decorated. I think it's open, I don't really think they have a theme. Have you guys heard? Yeah, I haven't, I'm on the committee and I haven't heard about a theme, so.
Okay.
And then I think last meeting we decided on buying candy. And, I've been working on the brochure, so I'll get that out to everybody so that you can see what I've done so far to change it and update it.
Okay, that was gonna be my only, updating with the new members, working with, and then, now that we have the new members as well, make sure we resend out the sign-up sheet. I mean, we all probably, can't make anyone come, and I know there may be one or two people that had some other engagements or prior commitments. But, as many as we can, we need to be there. And I know that you can't be there the whole day when I asked you for that, but I think initially we were looking at doing some different shifts if possible. But, yeah, if we can probably need to resend that out and start locking that in. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Okay. And then, okay, I do have some stuff to report. So, first of all, apologize, I missed last meeting. I thought I'd be back. I did not make it back. I didn't get back till super late, but, really appreciate you knocking it out in my absence. Looks like we carry on with business as usual, which is a great thing. I did have the pleasure, yesterday, matter of fact, to talk with, Mayor Finley, and we talked to a couple of things. I know that one of the things that we've been talking about, which is kind of talks a little bit about our old business, and that is what are some additional ways to make sure we get the message out about our meeting times, what we're meeting about, our location, et cetera, et cetera. So, talking with Mayor Finley, he assured me that we can easily have everything uploaded and all the announcements on the city website, on the page as well as our page, to include our topics and our minutes in the agenda. I also talked to him and he said that they have, I think now 2 communication specialists. So we could work, I'll work with him to maybe get us, he said if need be, we could work to get potential point of contact that could work and assist in getting information uploaded onto the pages.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The website, do we have a sense that how many of our residents in the city will regularly access that, not access, actually will check out the website? Do we have a rough sense?
I don't know if we do. I know that, I think it's a question that we can go back and ask and see what kind of traffic.
Yeah.
And see if the amount of traffic, if there's an additional way. That's one of the things we're going to talk about in new business. Pat, it's one of the things that he's been a champion for as well, is what are some additional ways. We'll talk about more of those in a second, but I definitely, I know where you're going, and I know what you're asking in your question.
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things that Samantha does with her communications and stuff, she likes to make a lot of media posts, like Facebook, what's happening in Madison. So I know that she's utilized that in the past. So whereas, yes, the website is passive, that's something that the city does and the communications use in order to get it into groups that are actually connected, so that it's eyeball stations.
There are several inserts into Nextdoor, but we got 1 or 2 responses. Hey, what's that? That was it.
So I want to talk a little bit about more in a second, but I have one more thing I wanted to also put out, and, I think what I will do is it'll be a topic, I'll bring it up, I'm just gonna wait and bring it up in the business. There's one other thing. But one of the things that, talking with Mayor Finley, he did say was that, he is very much appreciative of what we're doing, the information, the education portion specifically that we work on to continue to get information out to our citizens of Madison. We do understand sometimes some of the topics people don't maybe know as much about them, but as we work to continue to push what the importance of our committee, what we're here to do, and then some of the and ways in which to reach people, I think that's also going to help. But he was very appreciative of the work that we've done, and excited about the work that we'll do. So he definitely was very gave a kudos to the committee for what we're doing. With that, we'll move right into old business, and that is what we're kind of talking about now, and that is ways in which to reach more citizens to promote our meetings. One of the things, and like I said, Pat has really been a champion on this, is we've looked at, of course, we're utilizing all the city's assets, and that is the website. I know now that we're working, I think there was an issue this time, but getting, when our meetings are, pushing that out to everyone who's subscribed to the city website so they'll know the meetings, and we want to make sure the meeting and the meeting topics are coming up as well. We also got, have members have put the information in the Nextdoor, which is another avenue to get the message out. But at this time, and we're kind of open, is what are additional ways that we can continue to get the message out. And I think that your how you're thinking is exactly the next way we need to go. And that is, I think that we are utilizing a lot of the method and mode that to publicize the meetings, but we might have to be a little more creative or look at some other ways at how else we can help to get the message out. I do think that the city website is a great aspect. I do think that if we work with communication teams with the city, utilizing particularly their Facebook as well, I think we're going to, we're also going to need to think other ways to get there. I don't know if that's the paper. I'll make it with you, Brian. I don't know if that's a paper. I don't know if that's what are the ways, but I think brainstorming to think through that is going to be is a great way for us to move forward in order to get what we do, how we can help, and that we are definitely here to support the city. Aaron and then Brian.
So I put in a request on the public radio station, 8913 WLRH, and I did hear at least one announcement of what I put in as the script and everything announced today's meeting. So I know that didn't work. They have to do it each month. But I did say it's reoccurring fourth Tuesday of each month. Okay. So they did announce that. So that's one means. Now, if you want the actual subject for them to announce the subject too, then they have to put in a request each month with the current subject topic for the meeting.
And we can, and I think that's a great, that could be another avenue, but I think that's something that we've worked to plan out the rest of the year. So right. Being able to provide a topic, writing something up so we can.
But in general, got the word out. I heard it about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
If anyone was listening around that time, we could,
okay. And thank you.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add that communications forwarded me a list of their contacts that I can forward on to you as far as media, as far as all the reporters from different TV stations. And also, I don't know if y'all consider reaching out to HOAs and maybe those organizations, their presidents. Folks that might be interested in coming. I know that, like, for instance, I'm working with an HOA right now that's installing a reader of license plates as they go in and out of their neighborhood, basically trying to track who's in the neighborhood and who's not, who's breaking, et cetera, you know, to have a record of it. So, things like that, those kind of issues, crime, I can see some HOA members being interested, they were gonna find. So we got that list, I'd be happy to forward that on to you.
That'd be good.
Get back to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and based upon what I found this morning, this article in the Madison Record, couldn't we contact them, say the middle of the month, a couple weeks before we're gonna have our presentation, and see if they'd be willing to put a article in the paper? Okay. I don't know how they got this article about Dr. Mao, but, you know,
I don't know, they did a good job. If I might take comment. Mark, so, from communication or promotion perspective, that's what I teach. They are, I guess, two different ways. In a sense, one would be, we call it the traditional media, which mentioned as radio, television, newspaper, and nowadays, of course, young generations, including all of us, more into social media and the internet. And social media, as you mentioned, certainly Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, it's called now, right? And also utilize the websites, even email lists. Those are the things that we can use. But what I'm thinking is two things. One, we need to trace the traffic, as I mentioned, because if we just put up there and without knowing how many are looking, how many are actually receiving, clicking out, and then it's futile. So we need to track that knowing that how many of our residents are actually utilizing these different media channels. And it's not that difficult to say website, the webmaster they could track how many actually. Yeah. And then second is that I like the idea in that we call it cross-media promotion. That is, work with, say, HOAs or school PTA organizations, or even different, say, AYSO, if needed. I'm not saying we all need to use all the, but if needed, then those are the cross collaboration promoting the work. But of course now, what you said here is we just need to promote the meetings, but I'm more thinking is if there are important issues coming up, let's say the police department might decide, say, well, this is really an emerging theme coming up, and it will be beyond us as a committee with 8 or 9 members. We may need to have, let's say, a town hall meeting, right? And need to have more audience from the community. Then, literally, all these media channels need to be utilized to promote that particular town hall meeting. But for regular meetings, it depends how wide you want the attendance from the community. Because it will be certainly unrealistic to say we want every corner of the community, every representative. That's really incredible, right? If we could reach, let's say, through all these meetings, 20%, meaning 20% of the residents are aware that there is, the police department, because everybody knows, but there is this committee and the roles this committee could play, and further the communication we are strengthening. If 20% of the residents will be aware, that's already marvelous. Right? So it depends on goal. I would think that let's utilize all these different ones. We check that some of them might be, have to cost some resources, which we may not want to, but some others may be more accessible, and we want to utilize. And further that we set a goal saying, well, we expect, let's say, every meeting there might be 20, 30 members from the community, and we call it that we are satisfied with that. So the second point is basically tracking.
know how many people the city touches using that civic ready system? How many people have signed up for notifications?
I mean, it's a definite question we can go back and ask.
Yeah.
Civic ready. Okay.
I think it's called civic ready. Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is, we'll take a look at this, and I think it's gonna be of course it's a group effort, but, you know, there's a couple people that I'm gonna reach out to that I think will be very helpful in this arena. So I'll be reaching out to you, and we'll work to put together something. And then I don't wanna take it off old business yet, because I think it's something that we need to continue to work on and get better.
Kind of building off something Pat said, you know, we might can even talk to like the Madison record and kind of let them see our schedule for the year. And maybe, you know, if we could once a quarter or once every 4 months, so that's a third, right? You know, have them say, hey, let's highlight a certain topic and maybe even generate some type of article there that would, you know, kind of talk about why we're discussing it, why it's an issue for the cities and things like that. Once again, just something that somebody may flip through it, they may read the first paragraph, they may read the whole thing, but kind of to build that awareness, kind of, you know, when you're talking about that. Because they may be, I don't know how often they look for articles, but that might be something they would respond to as well.
The other thing is, with all the people that signed up for the newsletter, utilizing those email addresses as well. Okay.
I've also occasionally seen a crawl on WAFF mentioning, you know, Madison City is doing this, Madison City has this meeting scheduled. We might want to look into how we can tap that.
Yeah, I'm sure they have columns or places on the website that you promote, well, to at least list such meetings as public news. But on the other hand, most citizens probably don't pay much attention to that, because for the television or newspapers or whatever, they are looking for the newsworthy events or activities, right? So that's the idea, and that when they are important events, then we could spend some good effort and even invite some of the reporters or journalists, they are some are part-time, some are full-time, to attend our meetings, right? And they, if it proves the meeting is on the topic that is really useful to us, then they probably will be writing the report themselves.
Now, I will say this.
I'm sorry.
I will say this. They've been here before. So if there are but it goes to, I think, a point, and that's maybe when we get to the new business point. But that is another thing, is the topics being newsworthy and relevant. When they're newsworthy and relevant, people come. I mean, we don't necessarily have a packed crowd, but when they're newsworthy and topics that are on there, we have quite a few more people, and we do that meeting. So all the meeting outlets have been here one time, on more than at least 3 occasions that I recall. Which is good.
We don't want them every time to be
yeah, and that's. Well, we're going to talk about that potentially in new business.
That was it. You nailed it.
Okay. So any other discussion before we go into new business? So, speaking of that, and then we're going to go into a presentation, and that is one of the additional things I did talk with the mayor about was maybe the frequency of our meetings. And maybe that's something that I'm going to put out to the committee. I talked to the mayor briefly about it, but he definitely would love to hear our input, excuse me. And that is, you know, we do our meetings monthly. His thought was maybe they should be quarterly. I don't know if that's the right way to go right now, or not. I think what I would like really for us to do is kind of chew on that, and then we'll come back and we'll bring it back up for discussion. And then from there, I'll go back and definitely talk with the mayor about it. But I think my first point would be that we kind of have a calendar out for the rest of the year. So I would maybe like to, if anything, keep where we're at for right now, because I think we have some great stuff lined up. But something that we can start talking about and maybe lead to in the future, maybe January-ish. But I think it's important that we first think about it, come up with, is that going to work? Does that make sense? Or does it not make sense? Should it be every other month? I don't think anything's off the table at this point, but because we're meeting monthly now. So any idea that we have, I would love for the committee to kind of chew on that a little bit and then come back and we kind of talk through that. And I would love to hear your perspectives, pros and cons. I'm not sold either way. So I just wanted, that was the other thing we talked about yesterday. Without further ado, what I want to do now is turn it over to Captain Allen, and he's going to introduce Officer Tates. And they're going to do a presentation and then open it up definitely for questions from citizens.
Yes, my name is Mike Allen. I am currently the captain of the Special Operations Division, Police Department. We're going to talk to you, or actually Sergeant Tate, who is one of our shift sergeants out doing the work every day. We'll talk to you a little bit about traffic stops, do's and don'ts, things that keep you safe, things that keep us safe, and then answer any questions that you might have about that as well.
Good evening, I am Sergeant Weston Tates. I've been with the police department for 13 years. I spent a lot of time in special ops in our traffic unit, which I think you've heard from before. In 2019, promoted to the rank of sergeant and have been assigned to the patrol division since. Currently, I am a patrol sergeant, so I have a shift of officers that I assist in leading throughout the day. So we deal with this on a daily basis. I will let this conversation be guided by you, because that's what it's for. We do these, unfortunately and fortunately, on a daily basis because they are twofold depending on the mission of each traffic stop. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to think back if you have ever been stopped. You don't have to raise your hand. I personally have been stopped. As a matter of fact, not long before I interviewed with the chief of police for this job. So I had to self-report before I even got hired. But a lot of times that's our citizens' only encounter with law enforcement in a law enforcement perspective. Okay? Hopefully here in Madison, we do a better job of engaging in the community so we don't only meet in a law enforcement setting, i.e. tonight. But a lot of times when we meet these individuals on traffic stops, it's the very first time they've ever had law enforcement interaction. You take a 16-year-old driver, a 15-year-old driver, they are going to be nervous. Our officers have that same nervousness, or in most cases should, because I have always told when I've trained, if you lose that nervousness, you need to go home, because that is what's going to get you hurt. So you think about that nervousness that you feel as a citizen when you have a marked unit or an unmarked unit, turn on their blue lights and you think, oh no, are they coming to get me? We have those same butterflies. We don't know what we're walking into. Our intentions may only be to stop you because you ran a red light, you rolled through a stop sign, you're speeding, you followed too close, who knows? Whatever else, other traffic violation you insert. What we may not realize is we're walking into a situation where someone has a felony warrant. And that is the ticking time bomb in their head that says, oh no, I have to go. But we also don't know if we're walking into one of you all who are just on your way home from your daily grocery run or your afternoon at work or on your way to church. So until we get to that vehicle and gauge your reaction to our presence, we don't know where we're gonna fall in our spectrum. That's why a lot of times you hear us say that we go from 0 in a setting like this to 100. I may have to run out the door and go answer any call that's in the city. It could start with a traffic stop. So I will let you gauge where we go. Things that you can expect from us. We should be very clear about what we are doing and why we're doing it. We should tell you who we are, where we work, and why we're stopping. Things that we commonly are going to ask for: your driver's license, your insurance, and your registration, all of which you're required to carry with you while you're operating the vehicle. Beyond that, sometimes, and more commonly now, what we try to teach is forecasting movement. For males, where do we keep our wallets? Generally. In our dominant side, generally, back pocket. If I ask you to reach for your driver's license, what can I expect that you're going to do? I can expect you're going to reach back and bury that hand to reach for a wallet. So if I'm asking you for that movement, and I have a reason to believe that we need to clear the air, whether it's your nervousness, your dry mouth, maybe it's your carotid artery beating, maybe we need to clear the air and, hey, do you have any weapons in the vehicle? Yeah, I have one on my hip. Okay, we can work through that. But we need to forecast some of that behavior. And if you have a firearm, officer, before I reach for my pocket, I do have a firearm I'm legally carrying the weapon, right? And then we can work through that. Because we'd rather you tell us about it than us have to find it, because when we find it, that's when we reach a different level than we were already at, and it goes from there. No one traffic stop is ever going to be the same. I can stop Captain Allen and his personal vehicle 2 times, twice in the same week, and it's not going to go the same each time. Because his day was different than it was the time before. We don't know whether you've had personal matters, medical emergencies, a hard day at work, or who knows. So no one traffic stop in our book is ever the same. Now we conduct 2 traffic stop types generally. One's going to be a generic traffic stop, which is commonly 95% of what you see in Madison. Probably more than that. What they love to show on TV is generally going to be a high risk or felony traffic stop. And that's when you get the movie action, the V or the barrier wall with weapons pointed and us calling people out over PA systems or something like that. That generally means we have articulable facts that elevate our threat perception higher than a generic, I don't like to use routine, generic traffic stop. That's when we know we're dealing with a known offender, or we have information that they are a higher threat level to us than the average citizen. Those are very infrequent. In my career, personally, I've been involved in several, but not so many that I probably couldn't count. What are some of your concerns from a citizen's perspective and from the committee's perspective that you would like to address tonight? Yes, sir.
Is there an Alabama law that mandates that if a person is carrying a concealed weapon, he is required to inform law enforcement of that?
So that's a great question. Recently, Alabama became a constitutional carry state, meaning that you can carry a weapon concealed in your vehicle without a permit. Part of that law does state that you are to notify law enforcement that you're carrying a concealed weapon. Okay? The law even goes on to state that we can charge you if you don't. However, we have learned that that's a loophole, and I'm being very transparent with you in this fact. As of a a month and a half ago, according to Madison County DA's office, there is no applicable law that I can charge you.
So it's a law that is.
So it's a statute within a statute, but it doesn't allow me to make a legal arrest until the courts decide which statute that's going to be. And I say a month and a half to 2 months ago because we ran into a situation where they didn't notify us even when we asked, and then we did find a firearm in the vehicle. And that was one of the questions we had to answer.
So are there search and seizure issues if you ask and they say no when in fact they have one?
So search and seizure, we would have to be legally get into the vehicle to find the weapon, right? And there's a whole myriad of ways we can do that. A lot of them can be developed during a traffic stop and often are. But if we locate that weapon, we would already be in the vehicle lawfully. We're not going to be strictly searching for weapons unless it stems from an armed robbery and we know what kind of weapon we're looking for. The vehicle matches, the subject matches the description. We're going to be looking for that weapon in the vehicle to determine whether it's in the car or potentially if it's chunked out.
If you have 4 people in the car, you're talking to the driver. What about the other 3 people who may or may not have weapons? Do you also ask them, do you have a weapon?
I would have to, and mind you, the constitutional carry is relatively new. I believe as of in January. It was January. You are still carrying a concealed weapon whether you're a passenger or a driver.
Right.
So, in lay terms, without getting nitty-gritty into that one specific law, the right answer to protect you would be yes. Because I think most of us would agree if we're carrying lawfully under constitutional carry or our Second Amendment right, we're all going to do the right thing and say, hey, officer, I do carry a weapon and am lawfully carrying right now.
So during a traffic stop, you would say to the inhabitants of the car, does anyone have a weapon?
If I felt that need, yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I was thinking a little different angle in a sense.
Sure.
Because you described a lot of time with a reasonable suspicion of wrongdoing, which I have my own share as well. But I'm more thinking in some cases in that police might notice something you might deem it's unsafe for the passenger. So you might stop the driver and say, well, I noticed, let's say, just make it an example, say, well, notice the mirror on your left side is, wobbling, so can we help you, like they think that that's unsafe to drive without, a broken mirror. So in essence, the stop is not suspicious of wrongdoing, it's more of thinking something is unsafe and you want to provide a support to the just general systems.
So, while I would love to say that we would do that, I think the more appropriate setting for that type of interaction would be if you're stopped at a gas station or if you're stopped at another store and we can approach you in a consensual encounter and ask if we could speak with you. Because I can't legally make that traffic stop without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. Just because I think something is unsafe, if it doesn't meet a traffic law, an element within the traffic law and statutes, I then don't have probable cause to stop your vehicle. Nor do I have reasonable suspicion to believe that you're committing a traffic violation or a crime. So a great way to kind of bridge over to that is sometimes you've seen these cities that hand out gift cards around the holidays. They conduct traffic stops and hand out gift cards just as a, hey, here you go. If you put it down to the nitty gritty and he may be able to help me here, he's the lawyer. I don't know that that's a lawful traffic stop. And we actually, Captain Allen, if I'm not mistaken, discussed that 3 or 4 years ago and said, hey, it's a great thought,
Yeah, they typically don't sue if they're walking away.
Right. But it takes that one citizen to make that jump.
Absolutely.
What we chose to do is make casual encounters at the grocery store, at the convenience stores, at the library, and pass out those, hey, we appreciate you. To have a positive encounter, here's a gift card to Walmart or something. That is a dangling mirror. While it may be not the best idea to drive without a mirror, no, I'm not going to. Now, if your driver's license says that you are required to have a left outside mirror and you don't have a left outside mirror, now we've reached a traffic law element, and now we can lawfully leave that stop.
Yeah, I agree, because I was more thinking that the police versus community. In a sense, many view police as a way of just law enforcement, there's no doubt about it. But on the other hand, I always think that police, you are basically, part of the community.
Yep.
You might be my neighbor or Mark's neighbor, And as a community, a lot of time I was very moved to see there's this slogan on some of the state's police to serve, besides enforcing the laws. Right? To serve in a sense that we together trying to make the community better, even in our different roles. So besides enforcing, of course, suspicious of wrongdoing, I'm more thinking ways that really to serve, to support, to help. So I don't know. The example you gave certainly that makes sense.
Yeah.
Meaning, why we cannot just randomly stop you because the law says it says so. But are there ways we could literally make it to support and to serve?
So we get a lot of service-based calls that are not traffic stops. Tonight, and as long as we're okay, we can kind of dwell off into that community aspect. As long as we're okay with that, and we can circle back to traffic stops and go back that direction. We do a lot of community-based interactions. Some of them do start as traffic stops. Say that you run out of the house to take one of your kids, if you have any kids, to a sports practice. You run out of the house, you just got home from, sounds like teaching at UAH, you got to run over to Palmer Park or Dublin Park for practice, and you change pants and shorts into shorts real quick, throw on a t-shirt. What'd you forget? Wallet. What's Alabama state law say about a driver's license? You must have it in your possession at all times while operating a motor vehicle on highway, public road. So we take that and say, hey, you don't have your driver's license with you. You understand, we educate. A lot of those minor infractions where we may see a mirror on a traffic stop, that's where we educate and don't necessarily write 6 or 7 tickets. We may only write 1 or 2 that are detrimental, and then educate on not having our license, not having readily available valid proof of insurance, not having our registration in the vehicle. There's more, and you referenced the mirror. Those equipment violations are where we do a lot of education and a lot of community interaction. And then we get calls such as people who are broke down on the side of the road, where we keep traffic off of them while they change a tire. If your wife's there and she doesn't know how to change a tire and you can't get to her, our guys are ready and prepared to change a tire. If they can't, we'll get someone that will. And help them the best we can and educate them on, as crazy as it seems, we have more people that run out of gas in Madison than in, and we have a gas station on every corner. Since we've gone away from the needle that moves, and have these digital readouts, it's like, how far can we go low before our car stops working? Okay, so we are always pushing our officers. While I love to hear them make traffic stops, because traffic stops can lead to larger issues. You look at some of your notorious criminals, and they were only caught because of a generic traffic stop, and that officer had no idea who they were. And that's across the nation. That's not here. But it can turn into something bigger. But we use those as teaching points, and a lot of times our traffic stops are not to write tickets. It's to change behavior. These school zones are a bear, and they're getting ready to crank up next week, right? So that first week or two, you're probably gonna see a very, very heavy presence to set the tone early. But in a lot of cases, if you think about back over the last several years, that first week or two we're in schools, you generally see 1 to 2 marked units in each school zone with their lights on, sitting there, probably maybe running stationary radar, where really they're more of as a, hey, school's back in session, it's time to start obeying the school zone lights that flash now, both morning and afternoon. And then obviously if you see us out on the road and we're not engaged in something, I encourage you to walk up and have a conversation with us. We too are, if I take off all of my equipment and put on dress clothes or semi-business casual clothes, we can blend in with the rest of you, and you may or may not ever know. So we like to have non-law enforcement conversations about hobbies and stuff. And then that's when you can pop your question. Hey, I have a question about my 1, 2, 3. Yes, sir.
Proof of insurance, right?
Okay.
You know, everyone knows that pick your insurance company, yada yada. You know, they give you a car. Is it feasible to also, for proof of insurance, to be able to pull it up on your phone and show that as well, or is it?
So
are you actually looking for that?
I encourage you as a citizen to keep a paper copy in your vehicle. And if I don't get there, remind me to circle back to paper. Okay. Electronic copies are acceptable as long as they're readily available. So if you can log in before I get back to my vehicle and provide me valid proof of insurance, I'm good. Okay? We're blessed in the city of Madison that 90% of all of our patrol vehicles are equipped with wireless internet capabilities, which means we can tap directly into the state system. I won't fancy you with a name, it's not important. And as long as that's working, it will return whether or not insurance is confirmed. If it's confirmed, then that is an acceptable proof. If it's unconfirmed, we generally have to rely on what's in the car you can provide to us. Now, if I ask you, Frank, correct?
Yes.
Frank, what is your vehicle insurance company? He'll tell me maybe it's Progressive. We'll use Progressive. State Farm? Okay, we'll use State Farm. He tells me it's State Farm, and he's trying to log into that. I go back to my car. It confirms with State Farm. I'm okay. If it is unconfirmed or provides me a different insurance company, I'm going to probably take the cautious route and ask Frank to provide proof. Okay? Generally, we can tell who has valid insurance because they can log into it pretty quick. I can't. I keep paper copy because I don't have all the apps on the thing. So I keep a paper copy, and that's twofold. I also spend time in our traffic unit. So a lot of times when I would work wrecks, the drivers are already, unfortunately, on the way to that hospital. So now I don't have a cell phone for them to show them, or they may not be able to show them. So it's pretty common that it's kept in the glove box, center console, or in a visor. So then we can go and look for your insurance and get what we need for your crash report, so we can get it back to you, and your insurance company will be happy because you got a crash report. And you can start your claim versus you have to wait maybe a day, maybe 2 days before we can get back either on telephone or in person. And that allows us to verify insurance even if you're not there. That's why I like to keep a paper copy and encourage everyone to keep a paper copy. I probably have 6 years worth of paper copies in my car.
I think I want to share this last because my son was stopped, and he, the first time he was definitely flustered, and I think he might have gave the officer every proof of insurance and and card. He was like, hey, I just need this, and get it back to him. But that was just a thing. And I think that, we are in an age in which digital is the way to go, and I got it. But I'm on your level too. I shared this last time. Was in all our vehicles we have like a little visor thing, and I tell them to keep all your stuff in there. I would love, but I know it's illegal. You can't have it. It would be great if I could just have my license in there, So every time I come up, everything will be right there, but, you know, obviously I gotta have it on me at all times, I got that.
Yeah.
And I'm not always in the same vehicle, so that's where you get in trouble, but I just think that it's just important, and it's good to know that it's still, that we have the technology, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, so we do in Madison. Now, I caution you because you get into some rural areas in our area, they're not gonna have wireless internet capabilities in their patrol cars, which means they are going to rely on you to provide that proof. That's why it has to be readily available. We're pretty fortunate that we have those capabilities. But if the system's down, I've got to rely on what's in the car, and it's a lot easier for you to keep an app or a paper copy than it is for me to write you a ticket, because I'm not sure about insurance and have to come to court to prove that you have insurance. Yes, sir.
The new law regarding use of cell phones in cars, is that a primary violation?
So as of right now, in Alabama, it is a secondary violation, which means we have to see you violate a
Something.
primary traffic violation while holding your cell phone.
Yeah, every time I drive.
However, again, I'm gonna be transparent, but it's fair, right? So up until June or July of 2024, I cannot issue you a ticket. It must be a warning. It's a transition period, a learning period for the citizens at large. If you remember, 2016, 2017-ish, when Alabama's first version of texting while driving came out, we had the same similar learning period. It also started as a secondary violation, and then later, I think 2018, turned to a primary violation. As law enforcement, I think most of us would tell you we would love for it to be a primary violation because it is that distracting. I think we're making the right steps, and I may be speaking out. Other states around us are primary violations. You gotta be careful with your
Well, I've noticed with these cell phones,
Yes, sir.
people begin to take a little device and set them right up in the windshield. And they sitting there just texting away, or whatever they do. And even sometimes, right here in Madison, if you come up to the light 4 times, probably 2 of those times, somebody's gonna be texting and sleep the light.
Yeah, so
and,
the vehicle.
and it makes you get hyped.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And I don't have that, I didn't bring that literature with me. I started to, but I ran out of the office and brought what I had real quick. That literature, if I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me to this, but I will get back with Captain Allen and Brian and make sure I get you the correct answer. And we can provide that literature to you. If I'm not mistaken, it says the vehicle must be in motion. So if you're parked or stopped and doing it, then there's not.
Technically not about it.
Technically.
That's a question. How do you typically handle a stop in which someone decides, you know what, I don't trust the police, I'm gonna make sure that I'm videotaping this, I'm pulling out my phone, and if there's any sort of instruction about, not moving your hand, how do you handle that when someone is intent on recording the entire stop?
There's nothing that says that you can't record a stop, especially as a driver or a passenger of a vehicle. We train and encourage our officers to not get caught in the weeds of the cell phone. I've got a body camera fixed off because we're in here, but we record every traffic stop normally that we have. Sometimes we have equipment malfunctions, or we're at the office and we run out and we leave. So we're recording, so we understand that you all may or may not be recording as well. As long as we can work through that and agree that, hey, I don't mind if you record, but we still have to accomplish the goals of this traffic stop, then it's not going to become a barrier. De-escalation can become a great tool for us in those situations. But I want each of my traffic stop drivers and passengers to go home at the end of the day because I want to go And a lot of times, we're just simply trying to change driving behavior is our goal, whether that's through tickets, warnings, or education. That is our ultimate goal. There would be very small instances where cell phones would be ignored and removed from their possessions, but that generally means we're taking a physical custody arrest, at which point we're going to remove them from their possessions.
Question, you already answered two of them that I was gonna ask, so this one, does the Alabama state require that the driver get out of the vehicle when you ask them to? If it escalates to that point where you're asking the driver to get out?
Yes, the law does allow us to direct the movements of all passengers of the vehicle. And that's actually going to be constitutional, it's going to be a Supreme Court case, not just Alabama case. I would love to quote you the case, but I wouldn't want to get it wrong. But that is a.
I know some states, you know,
and we run into that from time to time, and a lot of times that's where, me personally, I would like to engage with you and explain why I need you to get out of the car. And hopefully we can get you to understand my goal is still to send you home. And ultimately it would be your choice as to whether or not you're going to comply, and you get to choose the outcome of whether you go home to your family or you unfortunately come with us. Yes, ma'am.
A couple of questions. I heard you say earlier that every stop does not mean a ticket will be issued. But there has to be probable cause to stop.
Yes.
Okay. Having an out-of-state driver's license would not be probable cause to stop, or would it?
Generally, we wouldn't know you had an out-of-state driver's license.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say driver's license. Out-of-state tax.
Yes and no. It's a very gray area. You are required to obtain an Alabama registration on your vehicle once you establish residency. So if I stop you today and you say, hey, I just moved here, I haven't gone to get my tags, and say you have a personalized tag that is memorable and you drive a memorable vehicle, and then in 6 months you still don't have an Alabama tag, then we are eclipsing probable cause to make that stop. Now, is that a very common occurrence? No. I don't remember most tags, except, and I use personalized tags because I told my wife we're never getting personalized tags for that very reason. Driver's license is the same way. You only have so many days after you establish residency in the state of Alabama to get an Alabama driver's license. There are exceptions.
When you say establish residency, that means you're moving here.
You're moving
My son
here.
is a student
Yep.
and has Illinois tags, but he'll get stopped coming out of my subdivision, and they won't ticket him, but they just tell him, oh, well, you need to update your tags. Well, the car doesn't belong to him. The tags belong to his dad who lives in Illinois. So, but he's constantly stopped for this reason.
Okay. That's something that I would be interested in, to see if, time of day can become.
Well, I will say this, they don't give him a ticket. He shows his school ID and they usually let him go.
Okay.
But it's the constant stop.
It's the perception. So we talked about probable cause. Let's talk about investigatory stops. That's where we dive into reasonable suspicion, which means we have reasonable facts that would lead a reasonable person to believe that someone has, or is about to commit a crime. Say it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know the circumstances of your son, and I think we'd be happy to discuss it with you offline if that is what you'd like to do, to kind of get more into the particulars. Everyone saw we had a recent rash of car break-ins. What's the day? Is Tuesday, last Wednesday night into Thursday morning. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 22, 23, 24 reported to us. The very next night, of course, from administration down and being proactive officers, they were in their neighborhoods very, very, covered them very well throughout the nights. If we have a vehicle at 2:30 in the morning and that officer is familiar with that area, and that vehicle doesn't return to that area, and they're just kind of driving around nonchalantly, there's a very good chance in that situation we're going to do an investigatory traffic stop to determine why they're there. And if they have legitimacy as why they're there, then we'll document that we stopped them, who they were, what their reason for being there was, and we'll send them on their way. If they can't provide that legitimacy, then we have some other questions that we're going to need to get answer of as to why you're there. But once we dispel that reasonable suspicion, then we have to let it go. Yes, sir.
Following that, in essence, the fact of being out of state itself would not be a reason to stop, right? Because I would imagine somebody, a tourist, or even would come out and rent a car from a state driving for state authorities. And I certainly, in those cases, I won't be happy with it that just to, a quick stop me. One side of them would say, okay, it might be but it become a common thing, then I feel that unreasonable.
I am looking, I got one of my quick ones here to see if I can read to you the actual statute of the vehicle registration. Mind you, it's going to be probably 6 paragraphs long. We're not going to read all 6 paragraphs, but there are exceptions. School would be one of them. The vehicle's registered to someone who is the primary owner of that vehicle and is out of state. Military, active duty military, we have exceptions for them with both registration and driver's license. Of course, your foreign nationals. I would be interested, and that's a conversation we can have, ma'am, definitely, to kind of see the particulars of that and figure that out, the circumstances behind it. Me personally, I'm not, just solely because he comes out of your neighborhood, I don't know the time of day. If it's 12 o'clock in the daytime and I can't put on the paper if Captain Allen asks me, Sergeant takes why'd you stop that vehicle, other than he had an Illinois plate, I need to do self-reflection and learn to be better beyond that. And if that's occurring, then that's something that we will correct and make sure that we know moving forward that here's where we fall, here's what we can do based on reasonable suspicion and probable cause, and let's move forward. Yes, ma'am.
I believe in the last meeting that we had for traffic stops, the police officer mentioned that they also have access to the database for gun registration. I mean, you mentioned you asked people if they had a gun in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also have that other resource of looking it up? And do you have protocols for doing that?
So I wasn't here for that one, and I would be interested in, maybe you all can help me, if he was talking about a database for those that have concealed carry permits. So if you run my driver's license.
Yeah.
Okay, then yes, we have access to a database that shows the individuals who have individuals who have a concealed carry permit for the Madison County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, but not one that even if you have a gun that's registered, is
No.
there a database like that for people to know?
Now, if we encounter a firearm on a traffic stop, depending on the circumstances in which we encounter it, we may take it and run the serial number to ensure that it's not stolen. But that's going to be dependent upon how we find it and in our interactions. If you tell me, officer, I'm carrying a firearm legally, I do have a valid concealed carry permit, it's in my purse, 9 out of 10 times I'm not going to ask for you to surrender your firearm so I can run it.
Okay.
Chances are you're not carrying a stolen firearm. You just told me you have a gun.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
before when we had the permit that was required, then you would have an opportunity to ask for that and at least verify that. But since that
Correct.
is no longer available, you have really, no way of
Now,
maybe if they say, yes, I have a gun, could you say, is it a legal weapon? I mean, like, there's nothing on paper or anything.
Yeah,
that
it
you
would,
follow through on that unless you actually took it and ran.
We'd have to be very careful about the line of questioning there. Yeah, that gets into some pretty deep and muddy water real fast there. Because you're lawfully carrying it. Unless I have reason to believe that you're, A, carrying it unlawfully, which could be a myriad of things, or B, that you're in possession of a stolen firearm, I would have to be careful about how focused I become on that firearm versus our original traffic stop reason.
Right. Well, I know a lot of sheriffs and police officers, they use that permit. It helps solve a lot of crimes. It helps, it gave them a reason to, that was helpful, I guess, to, just another level, I guess.
And I will tell you, since you brought the constitutional carry, if you travel, I think most sheriffs and law enforcement officers would still encourage you to obtain a concealed carry permit. Because you may go one state over and they may not have constitutional carry. So you may end up in a state and get pulled over and say, yeah, I have a firearm, and they'll be like, do you have a concealed carry permit? No, in my state I don't have to. Well, in this state you do. Then you're at the mercy of whether they're going to educate or enforce the law.
Yeah, I'll just say I had a situation, so with a concealed carry permit and reciprocity among certain states, not among all states,
Yeah.
right? Like, I could drive from here to St. Louis. Well, the way that I went through Illinois. So legally, I was okay in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, not in Illinois, and I'm okay being in Missouri. But that was something that I kind of had to realize was like, hey, if I'm going to go this path that takes me through Illinois, suddenly I don't have reciprocity, and that's opens up a.
It's one of those things you have to know where you're going and what the laws are in that state, and not only in the state you're going to, but the state you're going to go through. I'll be completely honest with you. In March, my family and we traveled to Washington, D.C. to see my sister and her family. I did not carry a firearm on that trip. You get into too many states and too much federal property where there's armed federal agents where even I, as a law enforcement officer, can't carry. So I left it home. It wasn't worth the risk for me because I'm not going to be put in that situation.
So you made us like two statements. Circle back to it, because one was you have a system to check Madison County Sheriff's Office issued permits, so not from Covington County.
If you run my driver's license, if I ran my driver's license outside in my car and you were lawfully allowed to see the return, I just can't.
Yeah.
It would say and pop in our local RMS system that you are a licensed concealed permit holder. That's from Madison County because that RMS, the report management system we use now, it talks to Madison County Sheriff's Department, Huntsville Police Department, and our agency. So those three large agencies, and I believe there are some smaller ones that tie in via Huntsville and via Madison County, like Triana, Gurley, Owens Crossroads. We see that information because that's now a large collective database. If you are a resident of Limestone County, anybody resident of Limestone County, if you have a valid permit through Limestone County, I don't see it when I run your driver's license. You would have to tell me I have a concealed carry permit, and then I could run that now, knowing that you are a resident of Limestone County. Say you have a permit, I could then ask the sheriff's department if you did, and they would be able to tell.
So, and that was just one level, and then another, when you were talking about insurance, I think the last time they told us the insurance information they maybe only have within the state as well.
Yes, it's just out
So
there.
they were like, again, if you don't have that paper copy, you get stopped in Tennessee.
Yes. So some states will return insurance information from the national database, most don't. If you run Alabama's through a national database, Alabama will not return valid insurance. It'll say status unknown. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. we did a field test, essentially, of a vehicle. It's been about 4 or 5 years ago, when this electronic confirmation came out. It takes about 60 to 90 days for that to catch up. Okay?
Wow.
It's not a live insurance database, you know. I hope it's gotten better. I think it has, but we haven't had the opportunity to test it in that capacity. Most people carry a 3 or 6 month or 1 year insurance. We also run into issues where people will go and purchase valid insurance and then cancel it the next day, and then they retain their copy. I don't encourage you to do that, but we do run into that. Yes, ma'am.
And then you also have access to someone who's been convicted before. I have a friend of mine who did serve her time, but she's afraid to have her younger, like teenage, even her adult children borrow her car for fear that, you know, if something happens, it gets looked up, the officer may go into that situation in a different frame of mind.
So, who has kids that drive? All right. So, your child or your children probably drive a vehicle that's registered in your name or your spouse's name. As the primary registered owner, your driver's license is attached to that vehicle. So if we run your vehicle tag, your driver's license information also returns. So in short, yes, to a limited degree, certain things will return about past criminal charges, but it won't necessarily return about conviction status or anything like that. To get that deep into the information, we have to go through different search avenues that require certain individuals that can run them, and then we have to sign forms, they are reasons, etc. Roadside, we're not going to get a full conviction list. It'll have access to limited things like traffic stops, you know, warnings, tickets, registered vehicles, and yes, active warrants, charges, if they're entered.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of our surrounding agencies don't enter their misdemeanor traffic warrants. They only enter their felony warrants and criminal misdemeanors, not traffic. So to answer your question, it's possible that they would see her license information and her tactical readout, I think would be a good way to put it. So yes, but we would have to verify her identity as the driver before we could take action or based upon that. But just because someone's had a rough past doesn't mean they haven't turned in a thief. We're going to react to what is present, body language, tone, demeanor, whether they put the car in park and turn it off, put the keys on top of the car, or leave the car and drive, or put it in reverse, unfortunately. Those things are what we would be reacting to.
So here's a follow-up question to that. Say you're behind a car and it's kind of driving a little, you know, maybe not the greatest, possibly on the phone, possibly drunk, distracted, what have you. You run the license plate.
Okay.
And you see the criminal history. Does that give you enough to pull that person over?
So you're saying that their driving has caught our attention, but they've not violated any traffic law? No. I cannot stop her based on her history alone. Now, if she has an active warrant,
right,
then yes, ma'am, I can.
So would it trigger a change if you suddenly suspected that person's driving under the influence, though? Like saying erratic behavior, weaving back and forth, and things like might would trigger that would a fact of, pulling up their driver's license or whatever through the registration, hey, 8 DUIs, you probably go, well, this is.
So we still have to eclipse either reasonable suspicion or probable cause.
But would that erratic driving be enough to trigger that?
Your term of erratic driving in mind, have we violated a traffic law? If you cross the center line and can't keep a constant lane of travel, I'm pulling you over and gonna at least talk to you about your driving behaviors and determine whether or not I think you're under the influence. And that may be a simple conversation like we're having. Or if I have enough reason to believe, I'm going to get you out of the car and ask you to perform field sobriety tests. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll say like one time in Florida, it stopped me, which was, quick conversation. He said, can you walk back here to my car? Got out, walked back there, and he said, you haven't been drinking. That was all he was looking for, right? He said, you seem to be hitting the line a little bit. He goes, you're fine, but go back to your car. I mean, it was just kind of an interesting, but that was his.
I'm not going to get into Florida because I don't work in Florida, and Florida's got laws that I don't know.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing. I go,
Yeah.
to me, I was like, oh, well, thanks for doing that.
Hang on just a second, Brian. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if we're only supposed to talk about traffic violations, but, I did have a question because there has been a noticeable increase in people breaking into cars, kids checking car doors late at night or wee hours of the morning. As homeowners and wanting to protect your property, how far are we able to go with regards to people coming up on your property and potentially, they're not supposed to be on your property checking your car door, so they're trespassing, so to speak. But at the same time, can you shoot them and then say, well, they were on my property?
So here's, hang on a second. First and foremost, I'm okay with answering, I'm going to answer your question. I'll let the committee decide if we're going to go down that avenue any further. First and foremost, I'm not going to offer you legal advice. I'm not qualified to do so. Okay? Secondly, as a homeowner, I would question you, is your car or anything in your car worth your life? Chew on it. Like you said, chew on it. Think about it. I'm in my house.
Right.
Am I going to insert myself into a situation where we can replace a car, you can replace a laptop? It may not be easy. I understand that. But is it worth putting myself in that situation to where I would have to make a decision? But what can we do to prevent it? Lock your car doors.
Yeah.
Okay? I told you 22 or 23 reported because I had one outlier. We caught. That was our shifting caught all that. The report was fine. Not really. But we had one outlier that it was a delay report from 3 days earlier, and it was in the southeast corner of the city. That one got grouped into it by mistake. So we have 22-ish that was reported to us. I know for a fact in Stonecrest, Hendrick Lane off County Line, whoever that is, there were, when I talked to the HOA vice president that morning, 10 neighbors that reported to him they had their cars gone through. I'm here to tell you I took 3 from that neighborhood. So while our number may have been 22, in full transparency, it was much higher. It's just it wasn't worth the citizens' opinion or time. Lock your car doors. Don't leave anything visible in the car. Purse, laptop case, cell phone, spare change, anything like that. That is please don't do that. And he brings up a great point because, in all honesty, what are they looking for? They're looking for things they can turn around quickly. Guns, electronics, and cash. And drugs. Prescription drugs.
It was interesting. We heard, I heard several where they were, just cash, just 26 cents, something like that. They're opening the door, and then they'll look for something else probably there.
Now, and I will tell you that it is important to let us know if your vehicles were gone through, because while it may not be the end of the world, they didn't get anything, you left your car door unlocked, they rummaged through it, no harm, no foul. What it helps us do is pattern things out. it breaks it into timelines, and geographically we have things that we can map, we can get with HPD and Limestone County. Generally, if we get hit, they're gonna get hit. And hopefully we can solve and get those, because they owe me breakfast or lunch or something.
So we just recently hired a crime analyst.
Yes.
So
Chief talked about that.
we're able to now start capturing a lot more data, and we're gonna have a lot more data for us to help try to push us in the direction to predict to an extent some of these events that are happening, when they're happening, where they're happening, time of day, week, that kind of thing. So once we start collecting a lot more of that data point, then we'll be able to direct our resources a little bit better based on historical data from what we're doing.
Summers are always hot for us because kids are at home, they have nothing better to do. Anytime schools are out, our vehicle break-ins unfortunately yours.
In the last meeting.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Question back on traffic stops. Someone's speeding recklessly, at what point will you impound the vehicle? Yeah, arrest and impound.
So,
because I've seen people flying that.
Yeah.
And I know I do all this.
reckless driving in and of itself is not going to end up with a vehicle being impounded. In the state of Alabama, that is just a traffic citation that does carry potential jail time, but that's done by a judge, not by me on the side of the road. Our policies do not allow us to impound a vehicle for reckless driving. That's where we're probably going to write the tickets and educate very well to make sure that they understand the danger they put not only themselves in, but moreover the innocent motoring public.
It's interesting that you say that. Several years ago, a guy that worked for me when I was doing lawn service, where, as it turned out, they stopped him and he didn't have a driver's license. I came up with the registration and everything in the truck, but they impounded my truck. They cost me an additional almost $200. And I just couldn't see the logic in them doing that.
How long ago?
Oh, that's been 4, 5, 6 years ago.
So 4, 5, 6 years ago, our policy was if a vehicle was operated by someone suspended, canceled, revoked, or no driver's license, the vehicle was to be impounded unless the registered owner was in the vehicle at the time of the stop and had a valid driver's license.
I wasn't in the vehicle, but I just came.
That is the way it was 4, 5, 6 years ago. It has since it's changed. We've progressed. There probably could have been a phone call made, but that was our policy, and it took a supervisor's override.
But I came to the city to see that.
Yeah. So our policy is a little bit different now. So now we have discretion to whether or not to impound in those same circumstances, unless it is required by state law. State law is more strict on what is required for impoundment when it comes to driver's license violations, such as revoked for any reason and suspended for DUI. Those are our two biggest mandatory driver's license issues that require impoundment.
Is there a difference between, like say you pull me over and you decide you're taking me in, my car is going to get left there. Is there a situation where you would say, I'm not impounding the vehicle, but we're going to tow it out of have it towed out of the roadway? I mean, what happened? I'm curious, that happened on our road where there was an arrest that happened. Car sat there for probably 2 or 3 hours, and a tow truck showed up. I was just curious. I don't know if they called it.
So that is a multifaceted question, and it really depends on where we're at, what the reason for the arrest is, and sometimes it boils down to the owner's discretion. If the vehicle is in the roadway and we make a physical custody arrest and there's no one else in the vehicle or that vehicle is part of the crime, we're going to impound it. Not only because it's part of the crime, but also we now have removed the only occupant from that vehicle. We can be held liable for that car. So we're going to impound it to protect it, not only for your sake, but to protect us in the city. There are instances where, say we stop you and you're in the parking lot of the library legally parked, and it's a failure to appear traffic warrant. But your license is good. We may not impound that car. We may make a physical custody arrest, make sure that you're okay with it being left there. 2, we would have to verify with the business that they're okay with it being left there, and then make sure that we lock the vehicle. And of course, all this is going to be conversation. Captain, would you say that we have become less dependent on impounds over the last 2 years than we were prior? Yes. And that is because look at the ultimate mission of impounding a vehicle. What is it? And generally, it's going to be to protect property of the vehicle, or it was used in the commission of crime. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question for you. You may not be able to answer, it's okay, but just your opinion. I've been researching some things, and I actually mentioned it to Mark as well. We are very fortunate in this community. We are a fairly wealthy area. What do you think about electronic ticketing? I mean, we have chronic areas like County Line, Hughes. You can tell you where the trouble spots are.
So you're speaking electronic ticketing similar to red light cameras?
Like speeding, yeah. And so if everyone knows, hey, that takes load off of you. You could be at the Toyota Stadium, or you could be directing church traffic. There's other things to do.
I'm going to defer to Brian.
I would say this, it's problematic, is probably the best response I can give on that, because it's harder to, there's a public policy where people know that they're being watched through cameras, and then therefore they will slow down, which provides very good, but who's going to testify to you actually being in that car? That becomes a little bit of a problem. So it's one of those things, public policy cities have to look at and decide, is it worth putting them up and maybe slowing some people down, showing the presence. But there's some problems, unfortunately, with the actual convicting people if they really push it to trial.
Lawyers in Tennessee said the tickets they send you from California, you don't have to pay. So, because legally you can't prove, I don't know if it's changed, but so it may slow some people down, but if you're gonna do it and get the ticket and not pay it, so it's not really.
I would like to look into it further. But if it's something you've looked into?
I have actually been ticketed and did a little research on it, and then get mine dismissed. So, I think any kind of idea.
What, I guess there was a discussion about that, I don't remember where it was, but, and they talked about, a lot of it depending on how the state laws were written, right? Where if it required an officer to testify against you, there is no testifying against you. So what I saw on one thing, it really came down to state law, and there was a suggestion that Alabama state law was not very amenable to it. That it really got into this gray area exactly how the code was written.
And a lot of those systems are a commercial installation where a private company gets a percentage of the money that's taken from the client.
Well, I want to give one last shot over the bow. Is there any other further questions before we get ready to wrap up? I love being at the library, but they will let you know you're at the library.
Yeah. Let me wrap up with this for you on traffic stops. Remember that the nervousness that you're feeling, we probably feel too. Okay? Your children. I wish I could I've tried to convince the drivers and teachers to allow us to come and pull their kids over while they have student driver all over now parents would have to sign a waiver. There's a process, right? Okay. But I think that could be beneficial.
Student drivers, but probably plenty of suspicions.
So I leave you with this. If you feel that something is funny, let us know. let Captain Allen know, let us at the police department's leadership know so we can address your concerns. If we ask you to do something, comply, as long as it's moral and ethical, right? I mean, don't follow bad advice of anybody. But our ultimate goal for everybody is for you all to go home, to be safe, and for us to go home too. But have conversations with the kids about your first encounter with law enforcement on traffic stop. Bring them by when you see them at the gas station. Hey, what advice would you have? Have these conversations with the officers. I mean, I make traffic stops. Captain Allen makes traffic stops. He makes about 5 a year now. If that, I still make them from time to time when it allows, but the officers are really the ones that do this on a daily basis. Have those conversations with them. Have them ask their, don't believe everything you see on the internet and TV. Really don't. Be respectful. Treat us as you would want us to treat you, because a lot of times our actions are based upon yours. We're reacting to you. So we're reactionary to your actions and their actions. And be upfront and honest with us. And that's really what we're looking for. I've enjoyed this time I've spent with you. If there's anything that we can do or I can do, let me know. I'd be happy to discuss it with you again in the future, and I'm sure Captain Allen will as well. But thank you for letting me come by tonight.
Thank you. Mark, one thing real quick, and Captain Allen, if you want to comment on it or not, I know initially we did ride-alongs. All of us on the committee at the time when we first set it up did a ride-along. If we want to schedule a follow-up to that, who would we contact? Just reach out to Chief.
Yeah, that'd be probably the easiest contact for you. Captain McRae is over the patrol division now. Generally, the ride-along request will funnel through him because it affects his people the most. But if you were to contact the chief's office, we'll come back out and do another one. We can get the ball rolling and maybe make it happen for you.
Sounds good.
No problem.
Well, again, thank you. Excellent presentation. Appreciate your upfront honesty and your compassion. Like everyone else, we know that it's an interesting time, but we all want to go home.
Absolutely.
Everybody, that's at the end of the day, we all want to go home. Before I look for a motion to adjourn, I did want to, at this time, publicly welcome Dr. I was going to say Bow to the committee. We're definitely glad to have you. I already appreciate your input and your thoughts. And again, everyone together, this is how we get better. It just makes me even more excited when we're gonna have, I would say we can get the band back together and have everyone, have a full slate and really start finding ways to continue to just represent our community and help as much as we possibly can. So,
Mark, we're back at full strength now, right? I mean,
we are.
We knew Rajiv and Wendy weren't going to be.
Correct. We are at 9.
Man, just ask one quick question. Do y'all have it set which topic you're going to have for next meeting?
Yes, we do. It is, so it's going to be August, and it's our school resource officers, SROs, which, as we know, we're about to go back to school. We were trying to time it, so that will be a very important topic to talk about. I will tell you that we've had them before. Sorry, Captain, I can't remember who we last time had. We had 2 excellent, and I actually did some of your advice. I was doing a run, and I talked with an SRO who was out there helping, and it was just great, just having a basic conversation with an officer. So we will definitely, one of the things we're also trying to do is get the word out, and we have a schedule, and then I must thank Rebecca, she puts together a flyer, and we try to push that out, and we're gonna work to push that on all the means, that's social media methods, as well as, I'm learning some new stuff tonight, some other methods, what do you call them? Traditional means as well. And we're gonna work that, but we'll push that out, and it's gonna be a time I think that will be great. We would love to get as many parents to hear from the school resource officers. It was, I mean, and kids too, yeah. But I love for the parents to know, so. And
if you get some graphics, I can share it with the PTAs.
Okay, we definitely.
Oh, yeah, I'll get you.
Yeah, we'll get your
I usually
information.
share it to the PTA. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mark, I make a motion that we adjourn this.
Second. I can't second. Thank you guys. Thank everyone for coming. Continue to let us know. Yeah, we appreciate it.
I'm retired.
Sit down back there.
I've got the videos.